public?
Anyone?
Chair, there is one member of the public wishing to provide comments on item number 2, Nellie McKay.
Thank you. Is she here?
She's stepping up.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Nellie McKay. I'm from the Bronx. I'm here every month. I'll bring some good news from the Bronx. It's only 3 of us on a committee there, and we're getting some of the apartments painted. Some people who didn't had stoves and they weren't working. We got new stoves for the tenants, some of the seniors. And we're having a meeting Friday with the manager and John, and they're working very well with us. We just started this about 3 months ago. So at least that's some good news. We're kind of making a headway in the Bronx with the apartments. But we're also telling the tenants they have to work with us. Once you put in a ticket, and they say they'll come in, and if the painter don't come, don't forget about it. Go back, put in another ticket. We need tickets, the date and the time that you put the tickets in, and this is how we can work together with the tenants. This one, Mr. Rush, I know, so good. Yes, good morning.
None other.
I'm still talking about Mr. Carson. I know you can't do it this year, but hoping by January you can get him in. Because I saw he was at a place last Sunday and I didn't know he was there, but we want to get him here. And while he's the secretary,
That's
and
correct.
we need the money that was allocated. It's a lot of things need to be done. And if we don't have the money, we can't get the work done. The roofs, like I said before, and everything. So we'll give you time, 2020, please, bring him here. We want to sit down and work with him so he can work with us with this money. Because you see, long time ago, money got away and we didn't get the things. But I'm hoping that everybody work with me. This money won't get away this time, and this is 2019, that was 1965, so that's a long time. Would you please? And I also have an invitation for you.
Yes,
On
ma'am.
the 6th, we are having like a little Thanksgiving dinner. I'm doing the catering for the ramp people because they are working very hard to try to get as many ramps finished before the winter come in.
Right.
So usually we have like little sandwiches and things, but now we're going to do a nice first Thanksgiving dinner. We would like for you to come. We would like to take some. I came from a meeting in Rush last night and did this invitation. We would like for you to come. The meeting at 10 o'clock. If you have to leave, you can leave. Would you?
Do I get a chance to eat anything?
Well, I'm going to have barbecue chicken.
I could stay longer.
Hot water cornbread. What else? Some rice pudding,
Ooh,
sweet potatoes with marshmallow,
ooh.
corn sticks, and for the dessert, cream Valencia, carrot cake, and a Jello mold.
That's irresistible.
So I
thank you.
expect you to see you there, and you can always bring a guest. Would you please? Because we want to work with you.
Thank you.
You seem like a good man. And see, we're going to hold you to your word.
Thank you.
Because I still have the letter. I'm going to keep the letter.
Okay.
Okay?
That's
Thank
good.
you very much.
Thank you so much.
I thought I'd bring you some good news.
Well, thank
instead
you
of
for the
couple-
invitation, and I'll look and see what we can work out. And when we invite Dr. Carson to town, we'll make sure to mention that we had with it, that you were
Thank
part
you.
of that request.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
things. Chair, that concludes our public comments portion, and we may now proceed with the regular calendar. The first order of business is adopting the minutes of the regular meeting of Wednesday, September 25th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. We will now proceed with the chair's report, comments, discussion.
Thank you. And this set of comments today will be divided into 3 parts. A quick briefing on some of the activities that we've been engaged in and some of the meetings we've been having. A discussion about our presentation on compliance by our Chief Compliance Officer, and then a brief discussion with the board on the new committee structure and some ideas that we have, but this is a discussion item only, and it's the start of a process. I wanted to let the board members know that we were in DC last week. We attended the meeting for the Council of Large Public Housing Authorities, which is an industry group that we're a member of, and it's about 70 of the largest housing authorities in the country. But we also met with the federal delegation, our elected officials, and that was organized by Congresswoman Velasquez. And that was a very good meeting. Both senators came in and stopped in, and we had a very good, I thought, initial conversation. We talked about at a high level, about our 3 themes, about operating under the monitor agreement and what that means for compliance. We talked about the potential for stabilizing the housing with some kind of interim capital investments, and we talked about the preservation work, which a number of items on the agenda today reflect. There were a lot of questions from the delegation. They had questions on the rental assistance demonstration program. They had questions on how that's working. We had questions on Section 3 that I thought overall was a good exchange. Earlier this week, we also met with the state delegation and had a similar kind of meeting with them where we traded information. One of the things we've been doing at each one of these meetings is updating the electeds on what's required under the monitor agreement, because there's a lot of folks who haven't had a chance to read it and don't really have a sense of maybe where we are with it and that kind of thing. So I'm thinking that we'll be doing a regular section on the agreement each board meeting to just kind of touch on it so that the board is aware of what's happening and what we're doing in order to comply. I would say that we're beginning to see, I think, a much stronger movement in terms of our partnership with the monitor. And like anything else, this is a situation where he's got his team, we've got our team, and we're figuring out how to work together. I think we've made substantial progress on a number of the action plans that are required, and as those plans get approved by the monitor, we're going to bring them to the board. So the board, we can have a presentation of what's in the plan, what the monitor approved, and also you get a sense of what it is we're doing to meet the compliance requirements. Those plans go through many drafts. That some are exchanged a dozen times, I would venture, to get them to where we think both the monitor's team and our teams are satisfied. His next quarterly report is in draft and will be out soon, so that would be something to watch for. And then we're hoping in the next 30 days that some of the action plans also come out of the process and come for approval. So I would say that Vito and I have been working really closely to respond to the monitorship and make sure that our teams are connecting and that we're putting things on paper that can be done in reality. It isn't an action plan, is steps. What steps are we taking? So I think that's been going pretty well, and I didn't know, Vito, if you wanted to add anything or not to that.
No.
Okay, thank you. One other thing before, we're going to do a presentation on compliance in a second, but we want to take a second to acknowledge we have an employee who has really contributed to the work here at NYCHA on the capital side. Deb Goddard is in her last week with us as he's chosen to go back to the homeland of Greater Boston. But Deb has really done a fabulous job for us, and I wanted to acknowledge your last day is Friday, and yes, we are. There you go. So, good timing. So we are sad to see Deborah leave, but we'd be remiss. She's just been a great addition and has helped us in so many ways. And thank you for your time, Deborah.
And if I may, I want to echo what the chair said about Deborah. In the 2 years that I've been here, what you have done for the authority, for our residents, and for me personally, I can't thank you enough. I do want to recognize, if I may, another individual who is with us for the last board meeting, Carolyn Jasper.
Oh, Carolyn.
The EVP for Operations. And Carolyn, like Deborah, in the 2 years that I've been here, have been cornerstones. And Carolyn, what I've learned from you about operations is invaluable. And I can't thank you enough for always being there, for always contributing, and for Carolyn basically said that she will let me call her even after she retires. And she might actually even come in a few days. But Carolyn is retiring, but is not leaving us. I'm sure that we'll hear from her often. She'll still be local. But again, I want to thank both of them for the contributions that they've given to this agency. Thank you.
Yes, thank you both. So as part of the chair's report, we're going to go right into a discussion. Dan Green, our Chief Compliance Officer, is going to give us an update on the various aspects of his work. Keep in mind that the monitorship required us to establish 3 new departments, and Dan is head of the compliance department, but we also have 2 other departments that we'll hear from eventually. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Before we move on, I just wanted to be clear on something. I mean, the authority's been meeting with an array of people, elected officials, with the monitor, and we've gone through many changes and adding departments and people to our organization or our authority. The one question that I have is, these elected officials, I know they're bringing what their constituents are telling them are the issues that are in the forefront. But what I would like to know is, are these elected officials familiar with the responsibilities that we have to meet with the agreement and the monitor, and are we working as a whole in conjunction with those issues and those moving forward?
Well, Victor, let me say that almost all the briefings have started with, this is what the agreement requires us to do. And I would say, and folks who've been at those meetings should feel free to speak up, we're in an education process, because we know what's in the agreement, because some of the folks in this room were there when it was negotiated, and we're working with the monitor on implementing those things. But a lot of folks don't really understand the agreement in its fullness. So we give a quick breakdown to each elected official about what the agreement requires, how it establishes the areas of compliance, how those different areas have different benchmarks and requirements, other terms that are in the agreement about how the agency has to operate. So I see this as step 1, kind of an orientation session, so they understand that we are in a different day with this document. I think the second part of that is explaining to them how the action plan process, that eventually these documents will be public and will be out there, and that those would be the plans in those key compliance areas. And as those plans are approved by the monitor, we're then able to share them at large, and we'll have a session on each of the plans at the board, so each of the board members knows what's happening. Same would be true for the elected officials. I don't think some of them understood the impact of the agreement. I think that's starting to come through, and we're also talking about what the agreement means in terms of capital demands. We have support from the state that's pending on boilers and elevators, but there are capital elements related to waste and pest management. There's other places where, so we're beginning to kind of weave together our compliance demands are going to make demands on us other ways. So I see this as a chance to educate the electeds on what the agreement requires. And eventually, once all this is posted, we'll have timetables and all the rest of that. So it's a start. I'd say it's a beginning.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on the parameters.
Yeah, that's the primary point was to
Okay.
get them familiar with what we have to do. So,
Thank you.
great. We want to do a brief presentation now, Dan, if, on the, and Eva.
Good morning.
And this is very similar, I'm sorry, it's
Yep.
very similar to what the electeds actually received. So
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Good morning, Board Directors. My name is Eva Trimble. I'm the Executive Vice President for Strategy and Innovation, and I'll be doing this presentation this morning with Dan Green, the Acting Chief Compliance Officer. So I'm going to take you through to start as just a summary of the major terms of the HUD Agreement. There were three major areas in the agreement. The first was to reorganize to improve service. And so we are working with the city's consultant that has been doing an assessment of our management. And that report we expect to be complete at the end of this week. And then we will begin work on the organizational planning process that's required. So within 6 months, we will have to submit a new organizational plan to the Southern District and to HUD for approval. And we will be working closely with the monitors team on that report. The second area is that we were required to establish 3 new departments to institutionalize compliance across the agency. Those 3 departments are compliance, environmental health and safety, and quality assurance. All 3 departments have been established and staffed up. They have been working diligently and scoping out their new charter of operations. So they've already started doing investigations and reviewing compliance across the agency. And Dan will talk a little bit more about how those are working. And then finally, as we've mentioned, we're required to create action plans that will detail how we're going to meet our compliance areas and performance goals in several areas. The 6 areas include lead-based paint, mold, heat, elevators, pests, and the FAS and annual inspections. So I'll take you through our status on each of those areas now. And what we've put here is just an example of the type of performance requirement that's in the agreement. This is not meant to be comprehensive by any means. It's just to give you a taste of the very specific levels of performance goals that are included in the agreement. So for lead-based paint, we have to address lead hazards in units with presumed or known lead paint, certify compliance with lead-safe housing, and EPA renovation, repair, and painting rule. NYCHA has been developing a procedure manual, compliance assurance plan, and new IT controls. We just met with the monitor team yesterday to start outlining the action plan for this area and to begin documenting all the work we've been doing in this area in the recent months. For mold, one example of a performance goal is to remediate root causes within 7 days for simple repairs or 15 days for complex repairs. And so far, it takes around 5 days to inspect for mold instead of the previous 30 days. The Mold Busters protocol, which was rolled out portfolio-wide 4 months ahead of schedule, and over 2,500 employees have been trained in the new protocol. And then for our action plan status here, we are actually in the final drafting stages, and we plan to submit the first draft of the mold action plan to the monitors team tomorrow. For heat, one of the performance goals we have here is heating shortages should be resolved within an average of 12 hours, and 85% of heating shortages should be resolved within 24 hours and none longer than 48. Over the summer, we completed extensive repairs on our boiler plant and heating plants, and we have 18 mobile boilers already staged at critical developments and 6 more mobile boilers in the store yard ready for mobilization if needed. There are 71 other mobile boilers across the developments already in place to help with capital projects that we could use if needed. Our action plan for heat is, we've already done 2 drafts with the monitor. We are getting very close, and we expect approval in the next week. For elevators, 70% of our buildings with no more than 1 service condition per year and no more than 8 unplanned outages. We're on track to meet these requirements, and we'll be bringing on an additional 40 teams to enable full completion of preventative maintenance and shortage outage duration. This action plan is also in with the monitor for approval. We've done about 2 drafts so far, and I think we expect approval in the next week or so. For pests and waste, we've been working very closely with the monitor team to talk about how we comply with the pest and waste deliverables. It includes establishing integrated pest management procedures throughout our operations and ensuring that garbage is either picked up or stored in a sealed container so that we reduce instances of pest infestation. So pest and waste are closely tied together. All of our exterminators and some of our maintenance workers were trained in IPM practices in September. We will be continuing to roll out training to other workers and skilled trades as we go along. We've been working with the monitor to come up with an action plan for these areas, and we've combining them together into one immediate action plan with an expected submission in the middle or end of November. And finally, our FOS and annual inspections plan, which is focusing on ensuring that there's no deceptive inspection practices during FOS and allows maintenance workers to perform minor repairs during annual apartment inspections. The FOS training is underway, and I'm happy to announce that this is our first approved and final action plan. We received approval from the monitor and Southern District and HUD last week. And so on that note, I'm going to hand it off to Dan Green, Acting Chief Compliance Officer, to take you through the more.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Green. I'm the Acting Chief Compliance Officer here at NYCHA, so thank you for having me this morning. This morning, I'll be relatively brief. I want to talk about really three issues. One, I want to just give an overview of our department, which I don't have a slide on, so I'll just have to do it from memory, so hopefully I can remember that at least. Then I'll give an overview of our FOS action plan, which as Eva mentioned is our first action plan to be approved, and I want to walk you through the actions that are going to be taken by that plan. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about how we're managing risk in general here at the authority and also the agreement. We've set up a risk advisory council to basically manage and oversee the different pillars of the agreement to make sure that they're moving forward and progressing not only up to the action plan, but after the action plan, because a lot of the work has to be done after you enter into the plan. There's implementation, so we need to make sure that we're tracking that implementation and resolving any sort of hurdles that we may have in that implementation. So just an overview on the compliance department very briefly, and next time maybe I'll bring a org chart that would have been better prepared. So I'm the head of the compliance department, and we have 21 full-time staff members in the compliance department presently, and we're broken into 4 units. The first unit that we have is our monitoring unit, which will be monitoring compliance both through on-site inspections and also review of the various records that are required for things like lead, and ensuring that we are actually following the law, and then issuing reports where we feel that there are shortfalls. We've already done a lot of that work around lead, around some of the certifications that we have to do. We're also working very closely with some other teams like on issues such as mold with our monitoring unit and on FOS, which I'll get to in a second. Our second team that we have is our team Compliance, Integration, Reporting, and Evaluation, or SIRE. And that team really is focused on a few key items. Number one, they're focused on helping our business units learn how to integrate all of these very difficult and onerous requirements into their operations, whether they be an existing requirement that we're just not doing a good job at, or a new requirement that may be passed through a new local or state law or federal law that we need to integrate into our business processes. So this team is really focused on making sure that we are training our staff, making sure that we are building our policies and procedures in a manner that will reach compliance with these new requirements. We also are focused on making sure, under the agreement, the compliance officer has the obligation to make sure that all of our reporting is accurate, all of our external reporting, and we know that that has been a challenge, at least perceived in the past here. So we need to make sure that over the hundreds of reports that we have to submit each year to external stakeholders, mainly our governmental, the city, the state, and the federal government, we need to make sure those reports are accurate, and that we have controls designed to make sure that that we're checking the work to make sure that they are reporting accurate information about NYCHA. The third unit that we have is our procedures unit. That works very closely with the compliance integration team. But this is a longstanding, a very important unit at NYCHA that oversees all of our standard procedures to update them, to revise them. And we've been doing a lot of that work in the past year because as the agreement has come into effect, there's a lot of updates that we need to make to those procedures, new procedures that we need to draft to make sure that we are meeting the obligations of the agreement, and then those are distributed to staff to make sure that that's how they're doing their day-to-day work. Our final unit is our complaint inquiry review, compliance inquiry review and assessment. And here we operate a complaint forum, which you can actually go onto NYCHA's website, our homepage, go to submit a concern, and you're able to submit a concern directly to the compliance department, the EH&S department, and our quality assurance department. And so this is a requirement of the agreement, and we have trained staff that review those concerns and refer them to investigators, to specialists in those areas to investigate them, and then to seek a resolution of those matters if, again, there are compliance shortfalls that we need to address as part of that. And we also, in addition to taking complaints online, we actually also now have a menu option on the CCC, which allows you to select that menu option and speak directly to the compliance department. So these are all new structures that we're building out. We're still probably maybe not a toddler, maybe a grade schooler or kindergartner in our operations, but we're growing each day. We're just meeting with our plan for building out our staff for 2020, more investigators, more people to more monitors, and then more data people to begin, because data is a huge part of this, and that's the other piece that our SIRE team is working on, is making sure that we're evaluating all the data coming in at NYCHA. So that's our department. I'm happy to give a more detailed overview at a future meeting, but I just want to introduce myself and kind of what we're doing. And we have started work. We're not just planning. We actually are building the plane and flying it, so to say. Okay, so a lot of the work that we have been working on, so now I do have a slide, is on FOS. So this is our first action plan. And just to give a very brief overview, what this is, when we refer to FOS here, this is the assessment system that HUD uses to look at the physical conditions of our developments to see how they score under a rubric that HUD has developed. And the problem that was identified in the investigation, and it was also addressed in the agreement, is that the federal officials did not feel that NYCHA was doing a fair job in preparing for these inspections and implementing it. There were allegations that we were hiding conditions on the development so that the inspectors couldn't get an accurate snapshot of what the actual day-to-day conditions at a development are, and that's what HUD wants to see. They want to see a snapshot of what it's like to live at that development, what it's like to work at that development, on any day. And what they don't want to see is those conditions being hid or quick fixes, trying to basically make it appear like the developments are actually better than they are. And so this is all about being more honest in this inspection process. And so the 7 actions, which I'll briefly describe, are all geared at changing the culture of how we interact with HUD on these inspections. So I'll just take it one by one here and just give you a little bit of update in terms of, and I just want to be clear. So the action plan was just approved, is approved last week, but we've already started implementing this. These issues are too important to kind of wait around for approval. A lot of these things are very practical, and we can start right away. So we started this summer as the FOS inspections restarted back in July, and it's been going quite well. I do think we're having an effect on some past practices that needed to be addressed. So the first action that we're taking is we're revising our FOS standard procedure. And the big message that comes out of this FOS plan is that we want to be FOS ready 365 days a year. We don't want to be FOS ready 2 weeks before an inspection and then immediately after it all falls apart. So the main sort of cultural shift is that FOS is a 365-day obligation. We shouldn't just be rushing to make our developments look good for one, and the property maintenance superintendents to make sure that we are communicating in advance of FOS inspections about what they should and should not be doing. A lot of the things about FOS are what we should not have been doing. Again, hiding conditions, quick fix repairs, all those things have to be prohibited, and we have to adhere to the FOS standards. So getting that message out, let's see how many phone calls we did. I can't even count. We did in front of every FOS inspection. We're sitting with the RAM, with the property manager, with the property maintenance superintendent to make sure that we are reinforcing the HUD guidelines. We're distributing posters and other information to make sure that they are communicating it. We're also making sure that the property maintenance superintendents are communicating to frontline staff at the daily musters about what they should and should not be doing, and to report any improper practices into the compliance department immediately. And that's a big part of like what we're doing here is this communication plan. We'll also be doing in the future some resident engagement about FOS and how residents can be vigilant about FOS and be reporting FOS deficiencies to the compliance department. And we're going to be meeting with the monitor in December, but that's also a part of this plan. So communication, that's a critical element here. Action 4, I've already kind of addressed it. We had to establish a complaint forum. So that I just want to note the complaint forum is going to be in the FOS action plan, but it's not just for FOS. If there are compliance concerns or EH&S concerns or quality of work concerns, we want to hear about all of them. FOS is a part of it. It's an important part of it, but it's not the only thing. So I just want to be clear that it is part of this action plan, but it's not limited to FOS. And as I mentioned, you can submit a concern directly to compliance on the web page, right on the front page, landing page, under the submit a concern tab. And then you can also call the CCC and choose menu option number 7 and get directed directly to the compliance department, who will help you fill out that complaint information. So that's all been launched over the past few months. We've been doing a slow rollout as we build out our staff, but it is live today, and it's been live for several months. The action 5 under the FOS action plan is to proactively identify deceptive practices. So this is monitoring. This is a large part of what our monitoring team, in conjunction with our QA team, has been working on. And you know, I get a lot of questions. Well, there's 3 different teams. What are their responsibilities? How do they work with one another? The agreement builds bridges between QA and EH&S on a lot of these issues where we need to coordinate. They have specialized resources in terms of inspectors. We're able then to take that information and communicate it, or to translate it into monitoring reports, and then to make sure that the actions are followed up on. So there's a lot of collaboration with the 2 other departments on a lot of these issues, in particular with QA on FOS. What we're doing is we've already gone to 30+ on-site monitorings this summer, and what we were looking for this summer is to make sure that all the communications materials that are required to be distributed were actually being distributed. We actually also did over 128 employee interviews to ask if they had been given the information, if they understood it, if they had been told to do anything untoward in any of their activities. And then the big piece that we're also monitoring for is Ehs Deficiencies, and this is a different EHS in our department. Stands for the E, and this one stands for exigent health and safety. So these are issues that need to be corrected within 24 hours after a FOS inspection, and so there's follow-up activity that NYCHA has to do. And so we've been actually going out to a number of developments. I think the tally is now 6 or 7, where we've been working with folks who manage the FOS process here to make sure that we are actually correcting those EHS issues in a timely fashion, that the documentation is accurate, and if it's not, we have to talk about accountability with the workforce if there are problems. So those are all things that we're going to be doing. We're also going to be doing more data analysis on work orders that are being created in advance or after FOS, and also making sure that we're doing unannounced inspections throughout the year. Because again, it's 36 FOS, 365. So our QA unit will be doing random inspections for FOS. RAMs will be doing 1 development per month, to ensure that FOS standards are adhered to, and that will be documented in Maximo. And skilled trades administrators will be doing 4 per week per supervisor. Again, making sure that we are adhering to FOS sort of a net each around the whole year, with inspections to make sure that those standards are 365. Action 6 is investigate deceptive practices. This is really comes out of all the stuff that I said before. If we find a deceptive practice, we need to hold the workforce accountable. to make sure that that is addressed and doesn't happen again. And I think, the chair has talked a lot about lessons learned and starting to learn from these mistakes and making sure that we're, redacting names and things like that, but telling the workforce about things that we're seeing that's not up to snuff, that we need to correct. And using that as a communication tool. We're doing a quarterly newsletter on these types of issues to make sure that people understand what is and what is not proper. Because sometimes it's kind of difficult to understand, and we understand, and people are very busy. But we want to get that information out there so people have a fair chance of understanding it. And then finally, the last piece is IT controls. This one is I'll probably jumble this all up, so I'm not really too articulate on the IT side of things. But basically, we need to align Maximo, some of the codes in Maximo with some of the HUD codes to make sure that they are more consistent with one another, and this will make sure that we are not doing any. During a FOS inspection, you're allowed to do certain emergency work, and we need to make sure that we're only doing that type of work. So we need to come up with some IT controls to limit the type of work that happens during the FOS, because that's a big HUD requirement. They don't want you doing the work while the inspection or basically audit is going on, because then they're not really getting that good snapshot picture of the development. And that's what we're doing on FOS. So those are our 7 actions. They're more robustly described in the action plan. I encourage everybody to take a look at it. My procedures team, Shirley Brown, who's the deputy director, that did really the heavy lift on this. And I think they did a great job, and I think it's a really good start. And more to come with action plans in the next probably weeks or. Go ahead, sir.
I'm very happy with this action plan that you've taken as far as FOS is concerned. The only thing that I just kind of tweak is on your action 2, training the NYCHA staff.
Yes, sir.
That is an excellent thing, and I saw, as you mentioned, that you have all level of people training. The only concern that I have is to make sure that as you implement this plan, it does not impede on their everyday responsibilities to the residents as they're going to their training.
Yeah.
So that this way you're fixing it on one side and it doesn't fall short on another. So I'm sure that there's something in that plan that will make sure that they can do both.
Yeah, and we'll have to continue to work with learning and development to make sure that it's not impacting their day-to-day work. That's definitely something we have to consider. And there is a lot of training required under the agreement, so that's definitely a very legitimate concern that we need to be watching out for, because we say train, but they actually have to be out there doing stuff too. So we need to make sure that is lined up, and that's an excellent point. So I'll just so now I can finally get to the next slide.
Dan, one more.
Yes, sorry.
Sorry. This may not be a direct connect, but I have been worried a lot about work orders that go for long periods of time, and they have actions, but they don't get resolved. So at what point are we looking at sort of chronic issues in work orders that require months to get addressed, so that they get filtered into the improvement plans?
I think that is something that we're definitely have our eye on. Also working with the QA department who reports to the GM, that is definitely something that is encompassed in this. We need to have, the agreement actually says we need to make sure there's an end-to-end process for the jobs, that we're not leaving things hanging out there. I'm also concerned from like the compliance perspective on lead and mold, and if there's like a long gap between the trades, that's definitely a problem for certain types of work that we have an obligation to. So it's definitely something that we need to be focused on and addressing, and I think working with QA, that's going to be a big part of what they're going to be looking at.
Including escalation, so that there's a clear way that escalation happens, so that those really deep problems. That's great. So
Yeah.
QA and you together.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, and also IT has a big role to play here.
Hi, I'm Bob Morano, the Chief Information Officer for NYCHA. So we are working at a job-centric view of work orders. One of the shortfalls of the existing system is that there's discrete jobs. So let's say that there's a job that requires several trades, right? There's a leak above, right? So that would require a plumber to fix it, require a plasterer and a painter. So it's a 3 trades job. And right now we're looking at those jobs as discrete things, and we have to kind of change it. And working with Vito, and we decided to take a more job-centric view of it, so that the planners and the operations staff will see it as a whole job, not as 3 discrete things, so that we can report out to the tenants that it's a whole job. We're going to manage it as a whole job, and we're going to try to schedule the stuff as close as possible together, so that it'll bring better satisfaction for the tenants, and also give us a better handle on monitoring these work jobs.
and trends that are occurring.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly.
And electricity.
And I would just add, this has been, this is, in some ways, this is very much administrative and procedural. But what we're presenting is really the foundations of the new organization. This is really the first steps under the agreement to both align all our systems and our people to begin to operate both in compliance but also towards quality. So, I mean, these things all fit together. Dan can't do his job without Bob's IT support, and they're all linked back into operations. So this is the beginning. And I would say each of the action plans that will come to you as they're approved are as detailed as this. Some are different in the sense that, you know, Joey's heat and elevators are much more about capital work, inspections, response times, and those kinds of things. But the level of thoroughness in each plan that's reflected in this first one is repeated in the other ones that will come to you. Thank you.
And so I can just finish up briefly. I just wanted to introduce the Risk Advisory Council concept. So obviously there's a lot of pieces of the agreement. There's what we call, there's 6 pillars. There's elevators, heating, lead, mold, pest, waste, and then FOS and annual inspections. So each of those, as you just heard, we just went through one of them, have subcomponents to them that need to be managed on an ongoing basis. So what we've set up here for accountability and oversight is a risk advisory council, which will now meet on a monthly basis. It will be chaired by the chair and the GM. There'll be an oversight team that will be responsible for basically being the devil's advocate to make sure that we're actually doing what we're supposed to be doing, and that consists of compliance, environmental health and safety, quality assurance, but also PTAD, DEO, internal audit, and the monitor. So we have a lot of different values that are, you know, in all across all these, a lot of experience in all these that need to be testing and looking into these plans to make sure they're meeting their schedule, that there's not any sort of issues that we need to address. And then we have in each of the pillars, which are responsible for putting together the plans and implementing them, we have an operational lead, which is the person who really works on the issue on a day-to-day basis, and then we have a cross-collaborative team. So the cross-collaborative team, I think, is really important here, and we're just starting this, but over time it's going to be essential. All this work relies upon other departments. We have to all rise together for compliance. So we need involvement from procurement, law, IT, finance, human resources, capital, real estate, resident engagement, and communications on all these components of it. Because as you just heard, these are multifaceted plans. So you can't have a communication plan on something like lead or elevators without involving communication. You can't do a lot of the work here at all without integration from IT to build it into Maximo and all the handhelds. So there's essential in contracts and procurement and staffing as well are obviously critical to getting the work done. So we have established these cross-collaborative teams with representatives from each of these departments to make sure that each element of the agreement is being brought up, and that if there's any impediments, and I won't use any examples because then I'll be throwing somebody under the bus, but we need to make sure that we are resolving them quickly and that they are sunlighted quickly, so that we are not so there's not an issue like that at administrative level that we have not addressed, but that is really important to compliance. So that is the structure. There'll be a monthly report from each of these groups into the RAC. The monitor is involved. Other stakeholders are involved as well. But this will be how we are going to track this. And then the remainder of the slides gives a little bit of the background and the structure, which you can use for informational purposes. I won't belabor them here today. I've spoken long enough. Oh, go ahead. Yes, sir.
On the trade skills, I understand that it's going to be hands-on, moving ahead. With the response when we have to have a contracted vendor respond to issues, how much control or how much urgency will be with them to come on the same tracks with this, where we have to have them respond as opposed to a plumber or something like that, like door intercoms or something that sometimes the contracted vendors have to address.
I don't know, Vito, if you want to, it might be better if you.
Sure. So if I may, with respect to where there are multiple skill trades that are involved, something that we're trying now, and right now it's focused on turnover apartments. right, and apartments where there are court order inspections, is to actually bring in a construction manager who then can sub out the various trades. So we're giving it to one contractor, and they will bring in all the appropriate subcontractors to deal with the conditions. And so that's one approach that we're taking. It also means that we're increasing our contract management staff, right, to have more eyes out there to ensure quality control and to ensure that the vendors are fulfilling the scope of work.
Vendors will be subject to the same standards.
Same standards.
For
Yeah.
compliance, exactly, yeah. And that's all I had, unless there's any additional questions. But thank you so much for the time this morning. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
No.
Thank you. I do want to say, I realize that this is not headline-grabbing work, but it is essential if we're going to meet the requirements of this agreement. And I want to commend all the staff who are on the work groups in one of the new departments and the support staff, because this is a new way for us to operate. And we're moving forward into this, I think, very strong. I wanted to go to one other item before we get into the regular part of the agenda. We had discussion last board meeting on board committee structures. So we have a brief handout to the board on our current committee structure and a proposed and simplified structure that we have kicked around a little bit. But I want to stress, this is for information and discussion only, and we can take a few minutes now to do that. We're proposing that there be 4 standing committees. The Audit and Finance, which is continuing, Operations, Compliance, and Capital Investments, which would touch both on some of the work you just heard about today. Also, this work builds up into the capital functions, and we felt by showing those 2 together, we could have a subcommittee that was seeing the whole range of both operation and capital investment, a resident and community affairs, and a governance group. We can do ad hoc committees that would be assembled for a particular task. So I don't want to leave the board members under the impression this is the only way we can address something. If something comes to our attention, we could have a temporary committee that has a sunrise and sunset to deal with that. There are other possible combinations, but we wanted to at least suggest this as one. But of course, the board, at the next meeting, we can vote on what we think is the structure that we feel as a group most comfortable with. So if we want to have any discussion now, we'd be open to that.
Where would real estate be?
It would probably come under the capital investments, because we'll have to make so many of them. And if you think about it, there's a stair step here: operations doing the daily work, compliance. There's going to be capital work involved with the compliance. I think one of the easy examples is when Vito and I are out on the properties and we're looking at the large waste yards, we actually want to build structures to enclose those. So that's a compliance issue that goes all the way up to capital. So we felt here you could see where the real estate and capital investments would come from.
Well, first, I appreciate the work that's clearly, and the thinking that's clearly gone into this. I think it's important to do, to have a more active role for the committees of the board, and looking forward to it. I guess one question on governance committee, sort of given the important but relatively narrow scope, is whether we want to think about integrating that into audit potentially, to free up some resources in other areas. Just something to think about as we sort of move forward.
Any other comments on keep in mind, this is discussion only, so we can go back and forth on this. If you see things that you like, we can edit this. And then our proposal is at the next board meeting, we would adopt a committee structure that the board members feel comfortable with.
Yeah, the only thing I would just say, I'd like to consider if real estate should be its own because
Sure.
of the whole pack in RAD. That's the
Right,
only thing.
right.
Because there's so many elements of that, including the community outreach and
Mhm.
certainly the resident outreach. But I do feel it's such a critical part of where we're going.
Yeah. Any other comments from the board for today's meeting? We have, we'll bring this up as an official action item at the next meeting, and let's feed us your comments, and we can make sure to circulate so that if there's modifications you want to make, everyone sees them before that meeting, and then we can vote on those modifications and so forth. Okay?
Okay.
Great, that finishes the chairs, and I want to say one other thing. As we get the action plans approved, we're going to do these presentations so that you have a clear understanding of what's in the plan. And the plan is a collaborative. I think Dan's choice of that word was appropriate because not only is it internal, but the monitors team is on those work groups as well. And they're engaging us every day as part of that process.
Okay, thank you,
All right,
Chair.
thank you.
We will now proceed with the calendared items 1 through 37. Deborah's going to present item number 1. Before she does, she will give us an update on Board Resolution 18328-6, which authorized a temporary suspension of certain heat-related systems contracts.
Yes, in order to expedite, particularly at the time, the mayor's heating pipeline, we did get authorization to award contracts prior to coming to the board with reporting thereafter to the board. So those contracts were let at the end of 2018 and were reported, the awards were reported at the January 2019 board meeting. Since then, we've been noticed to proceed. We have not had any change orders to date, which is another one of the action items we might otherwise have come to the board with. I will just acknowledge that this pipeline's being managed by AECom. They're one of our program managers we hired to administer sort of one-time pipelines rather than staff up for permanently for work funding that's only one time. So they are proceeding. All the temporary boilers are on site. They're not all connected. So far, we have not had any problems yet. We have had some delays from the Department of DOI in terms of getting our V&C on our subcontractors, but AECom is dogging that. If that's it, I will go to item number 1. I'm going out with a whimper. I have 1 vote. This is the recommendation to ratify a change order in connection with our Sandy work at LaGuardia. The contract that we're speaking to was awarded to Novelis. It's almost $119.5 million. This change order relates to field conditions, some changes around sump pumps, sump pump pits, additional modifications to flood wall. And remember, a lot of what we're doing is new, and so it's not unusual. This change order itself is only in the amount of $119,000, a little bit over $119,000, but we've had prior change orders that have brought us over the 10%, so that's why we're here with this one today. Are there any questions? Well, I will say in return, thank all of you for your time and commitment to the agency.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Deborah.
Thank you.
Good morning, Matt Charney, Director of New Construction for Real Estate Development. Resolution 2 is requesting authorization to submit a Section 18 application to HUD and contingent upon Section 18 approval by HUD to lease an approximately 12,600 square foot parcel of land at Sotomayor Houses in the Bronx for the development of 200 new affordable senior housing units with 1 superintendent unit, ground floor community facility, and on-site supportive services for a 99-year ground lease with a joint venture between Zenolith Partners, the Kretschmer Companies, ELH Management, and Jewish Association Serving the Aging, or JASA. The affordable housing units for seniors will be deeply affordable with the provision of Section 8 vouchers from the authority. They would be a max income of 50% of area median income. Authority residents interested in moving into the new apartments would be given a preference for 35 of those units. The project is expected to be financed and start construction likely 2021. Any questions?
Can you talk about the homeless units?
Sure. So there would be a set aside for formerly homeless individuals, formerly homeless seniors, in this case, for 61 of the 200 units.
And the referrals will be coming from DHS?
I'd have to check on where the referrals will be coming from. Typically, it is DHS.
And will they have to be chronically homeless?
So I'm not sure what the definition is that they use, but it's formerly, people that have met the city's definition of homeless. I don't know if chronically homeless, but I can get back to you on that.
And will they have to have mental illness? Because you have supportive services involved. So will the supportive services team meet with these 61 homeless residents or the families? Will there be certain criteria for the supportive services?
The supportive services would be any of the residents of the building that need them. I'm not sure if, as to mental illness, I'm not sure if that's a criteria for qualifying for those units. I can get more information on the programming for the homeless units and how you would qualify.
Thank you.
One other item of note, because this is a disposition, there will be proceeds under the lease payment, and those proceeds by HUD law are required to go back into the property.
Correct. And we've committed for any of these, as is typical, that all those proceeds would be used at Sotomayor houses
Yes.
or nearby NYCHA developments. Yes.
In the category of homeless, there's another category that might be included or has been considered for veterans.
There are programs that serve specifically veterans. This is not, veterans aren't the target population here, but we can look into maybe on future developments.
I mean, I know that there's programs for the veterans, but there's also other programs for the homeless. So I'm assuming that if you're gonna have this at this location, that should also be incorporated in this program as well.
It's possible that a veteran could come in through this program, but I think to answer some of these questions, we would need to see the supportive services and program plan for those 61, because we're dealing with the real estate transaction, but we'd be glad to provide the update on what the service level would be to the board, so you have a sense of what the building will be about once it's built.
Please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Will there be, or is there a process for maturation of the residents to get some type of orientation, understand some of the things that were brought up here today, like time frame for their choices to make, possible things that might prevent them from moving into these apartments, something to acclimate them into these nice conversions that you're doing. So, because everybody probably won't be eligible, I guess, I'm not sure, but what would be the time frame from the time that you actually start building till it actually built, to give residents time, some orientation sessions? If so, how many? Just to get people, because people sometimes are leery or afraid and unsure of this, of their living conditions going forward.
Yeah, so we've already been to Sotomayor to talk to residents about the project, just so they know it's going to happen. It would likely be, like I said, 2021 before it starts construction, so that's probably 2023, mid-23, even maybe 2024 before the building's complete. Before then, we would go out, as we do typically, and anyone interested in applying for this housing, we would talk about the process and how you would be interested. It's not, this is a opt-in thing. If seniors are interested in this, it is, from 50% of area median income and below down to nothing. So it's really, if you're a senior and you qualify and you meet that income range, it's very affordable because with the vouchers, the federal government would cover the rest of the rent payments. So to answer your question, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And will it be lottery? It's going to be conducted by lottery?
So with the Section 8 vouchers, we've most recently done a bit of a mix. So some of the units were lottery, and then some of them come off of the existing NYCHA Section 8 wait list, because we do have a wait list that's been closed for some time. So it was a bit of a blend that's sort of subject to change. Again, that would be years from now. So, but the anticipation would be that it would be similar. Some would be lottery, and some would be from the existing Section 8 wait list, as well as the homeless referrals.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
For number 3, please.
Hi, I'm P.V. Anantram, EVP Finance, here to report on our Treasury's investment actions at the close of June 30 of this year. We closed June 30 with $1.4 billion. We earned about $7.5 million for that quarter. The returns were around 2.25%. The $1.4 billion is mostly made up of about $600 million in reserves that we have to have for workers' comp and liabilities. About $500 and odd million are 2.5 months of operating reserves that are required. $110 million is for vendor escrow payments. Our annual returns for that 12-month period was around $25 million. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 4. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Carrie Jew, Executive Vice President and Chief Administrative Officer. This morning I'm presenting resolution number 4. With this resolution, I'm seeking authorization to amend the agreement with WB Mason, increasing the not-to-exceed amount by $97,500 for a total not-to-exceed amount of $292,500. NYCHA's agreement is for a term of 4 years, 9 months, and 14 days with no renewal options and a not-to-exceed amount of $195,000. This agreement was piggybacked off of a DCAS contract, which commenced September 25th, 2015, and which expires September 24th, 2020. NYCHA's agreement commenced on December 11th, 2015, and is continuing through September 24th, 2020. By way of background, WB Mason provides for the purchase and delivery of calendars, diaries, planners, and journals to staff at all NYCHA locations. Staff use these items to record visitors to locations, boiler rooms, and properties, as well as for their own daily working notes. Logbooks are required in all boiler rooms to record every visitor that enters, as well as track all inspections and maintenance work. These entries must be logged in blue or black ink in a bound book. Likewise, environmental field inspectors are required to log their inspections in blue or black ink into a bound book. The staff increases in 2019 and anticipated staff increases in 2020 have resulted in the need for a larger order of these items. The requested funds increase will address the cost of the overflow of the 2020 order, as well as the 2021 order to be placed prior to the contract's December 2021 expiration. Therefore, I'm requesting your approval to fund the continued provision of goods and delivery with WB Mason by increasing the not-to-exceed amount by $97,500 for a total not-to-exceed amount of $292,500. Any questions? Yes.
I read, thank you for the response, and the question I asked about the NYCHA's dealings, how their record is. I believe I read they've been doing business with them since 2005. Is that correct? Or that's citywide?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be a period of over maybe 14 years. But I only read 2 historical aspects of. One was favorable and one that was not. So I was wondering, is there more something out of a 14-year period that could possibly be read as far as the dealings that NYCHA had with this, because there's been numerous They have a numerous track record of a lot of complaints. So,
I think the most recent evaluation was that they performed satisfactorily. I think the earlier one that we found was a couple of years before.
it was 218.
You're right.
And
And then in 2019, I think it was favorable.
up to now, is it accurate, if I read it correctly and understand, is that the business, the monetary business done with them has been up to like $2.8 million up till now? Is that correct, or did I misread that?
I'd have to go back and check my notes.
Oh. Yeah, contract awards, yeah, 2.8. It is
Confirm
$2.8
that.
million that has been spent with this vendor. And I've only been able to read one favorable from this year, one not so favorable from last year over a 15-year period. So I was just wondering, is it applicable to ask if there are more, because over a 15-year period, there has to be, something more to read.
You mean earlier years?
Yes, I asked for a historical aspect of us doing business with them. I'm not gonna go by, per se, outside what they've done,
Right.
but I'm just saying, is there more
So
historical?
we'll have to get back to you on that. I'd have to look into the history prior to the information that we provided in response to your question.
I mean, I will point out that the contractor information does show $721,000 worth of material over the past 5 years. That's what I don't know where the other number comes from, but I wonder if that's maybe their overall business through the
Yes.
piggyback. So we're piggybacking on a contract that already exists, but for maybe a piece that's our piece, but is a smaller piece. But we could.
We can go back and
We can go
get
back
more
and check and
information.
make sure that's correct. So, because we don't show as much being purchased from them as that number, and that may be their citywide number.
Okay, we can go back and get more information and clarify that.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Items 5 through 28. Yes.
Good morning, Chair, GM, and board members. My name is Carolyn Jasper, Acting EVP for Operations, and I will be presenting items number 5 through 27. For item number 5, authorization is requested to award this IDIQ contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, GSA Direct Supply LLC. The first lowest bidder is and eligible to receive award of this IDIQ contract, as the bid documents limit award of no more than one IDIQ contract of this product to any one vendor, and the authority has awarded one other IDIQ contract to the first lowest bidder. The IDIQ contract also provides for a one-year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole direction. This contract is for the purchase and delivery of kitchen cabinets for various various developments citywide, and it will be administered by management and planning. Item number 6 is also for the purchase and delivery of kitchen cabinets. Authorization is requested to award this IDIQ contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Visual Millwork and Fixture MFG Incorporated. The first lowest bidder and the second lowest bidder are ineligible to receive award of this IDIQ contract, as the bid documents limit award of no more than one IDIQ contract of this product to any one vendor, and the authority has awarded one other IDIQ contract to the first lowest bidder and seeks to award one IDIQ contract to the second lowest bidder. The third lowest bidder was deemed non-responsive for failure to meet the contract specifications as outlined in the authority's bid documents. This IDIQ contract also provides for 1 year renewal option to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. This contract is also for citywide operations, management, and planning. I would also like to mention that both contracts are for the funding source amount of $4,190,492. Are there any questions?
two kitchen cabinet vendors represent the total kitchen cabinet purchases for the 2 years or for the 1 year? The 1 year.
So you're asking as far
Are
as,
there other vendors?
I believe that there is one other vendor. Is that correct? There is one additional vendor in addition to these two vendors? Yes.
And that's an active contract previously, or? Yeah, so
Yes.
that's in place now, and we're adding these two.
In order to cover what we need
Right,
for
right.
the planning period of a
Yes,
year.
correct.
1 year option.
Yes.
Got it.
What's the title of that? We used to have sessions on Mondays and we changed it to Friday.
Yes, okay, yes, I have that. Okay, great. I would also like to mention that for item number 5, the cost amount for this contract is $4,190,492. This is for various developments, and the other contract is also for various developments, and the amount of $4,190, $492.
4 million.
I'm sorry, $4 million.
Right.
Okay. Item number 7, authorization is requested to award this job order contract, JOC, to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Penn Enterprise Incorporated. This JOC also provides for 2 one-year renewal options to be exercised at the authority's sole discretion. This contract is for various Manhattan developments, and the amount not to exceed is $1.8 million. Are there any questions? Item number 8, authorization is requested to award this contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Limited Enterprise Incorporated. There are no renewal options. This contract is for various citywide contracts, and it is the award and purchase and delivery of mobile boilers. The funding source amount is $1,335,500. Are there any questions?
Please.
In our last, in the previous report, it indicated that we have a total of 95 mobile boiler units. Is that sufficient for this winter, or will there be additional purchases?
So we can increase that, we have contracts that we can increase that number.
Okay.
Of rentals and/or purchases as necessary.
Okay, so we're covered for this winter season
And we
to
believe
the best
that's
of
more
your...
than a sufficient number, given, you know.
And this is in addition to what we've talked about is this included in the heat plan or in addition to, do we know?
This is, it's included.
It's included in the
yes.
heat plan, so this is part of what will come when we,
Yeah, we saw the 95 number was in the previous...
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
included. We have a mobile rental contract as well.
Okay.
Yes.
I believe that these mobile boilers, where we're renting and purchasing from, I believe you said the staffing, the companies will have 24-hour staff to respond, to assist us if we have issues with them or something to that nature?
Yes, that was mentioned.
This
Well, so
is
the-
for the purchase of mobile boilers.
we would own this.
We would
These
own
are,
it.
Okay.
yeah, these are
Okay.
mobile boilers that we are owning, that we're buying. So this is the contract to buy the mobile
And our
boilers
staff-
that will be serviced by our staff.
Okay.
Great.
All right.
We have
Thank you.
both.
Right, for the rentals, it's a combination of both our staff as well as tech support staff from the vendors for
Well, that-
any repairs.
And that won't hurt our response time until
No,
we're
not at
trying to
all.
do?
No.
Okay, all right.
Item number 9, authorization is requested to ratify the award of this emergency contract to the most qualified and responsive bidder, United Rentals North Incorporated United Rentals, for the rental and servicing of 12 generators, and a change order to this emergency contract awarded to United Rentals for an initial 3-month term to increase the not-to-exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services during the extended 107-day term, which commenced on October the 17th, 2019, and is continuing through January the 21st, 2020. The rental of these generators are for Jackson Houses. Operations, maintenance, repair, and skilled trades is the administering department. This ratification of a funding increase is required to increase the not-to-exceed amount in order to fund the continued provisions during an additional extended 107-day term, which commenced on October the 17th, 2019, and is continuing through January the 31st, 2020. The timeline for transformers at Jackson Houses is as follows. MRST has no plans for the replacement of the transformers. At this time, the transformer replacement project is being handled by CPD. CPD plans to have a proposal regarding the replacement of the transformers ready around November 10th and an awarded contract by December 2019. CPD is utilizing a job contract to expedite this work. CPD has a site visit set up for this coming Tuesday, 10/29, with MRST electricians to survey the location. Are there any questions?
I'm sorry, now that, do we have any sense, if we award in December, of the time it will take to get the transformers restored so that we can take the site off?
So we're actually not replacing the transformers. What we are doing is, this development is kind of unique.
Right.
So there are 14 buildings. One building is on grid service, the others were being serviced through transformers. This project, the capital project, is to eliminate the need for the transformers
Put
and
them
bring
all
them
on
all on
the grid.
grid service.
Okay.
Yeah.
But in the interim, we are putting in transformers
To-
in the interim until the
Till we can-
Con Ed
Temporary
problem-
measure,
right,
Right,
yes.
okay.
Right.
So
Two buildings will remain on transformer when they're putting in the temporary transformers, so to speak, just because the problem is the transformers can't handle the load of a modern day apartment building.
Okay.
So we're gonna have to keep, oh, I'm sorry, hi, I'm Joey Koch, I'm the SVP of
We know,
operations, sorry.
yeah.
So I apologize. So what the CPD consultant said is that unfortunately, two buildings are gonna have to stay on generators until they're hooked up to the Con Ed grid, but 4 buildings will be taken off.
Okay.
Good. This is one of the remaining developments. I think there are possibly 2 others that we still have within our inventory that are on high voltage, right, meaning that they have to convert to transformers within the buildings. So this is a long overdue
Right,
project.
yeah.
Yeah.
We all love Jackson Houses. We hear
Yes.
from them.
We hear from them a lot.
Thanks, Joey. Thank you. I would like to mention that the amount of this contract is $3,328,341.06. Items number 10, 11, and 12 are all for maintenance painting of apartments. Authorization is requested to approve a change order to this requirement contract awarded to Satgar Construction Incorporated for maintenance painting of apartments, which did not require initial board authorization for initial 2-year term with 1-year renewal option to increase the not-to-exceed amount in the amount of $140,260 in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remaining of the initial 2-year and the 1-year renewal option term, which commenced on April the 17th, 2018, and is continuing through April 16, 2021. This contract is for Boston Secor Houses and Baychester Houses LLC 2. Item number 11 is for Glenwood Houses, maintenance painting of apartments. The contractor is Satgar Construction, and the not-to-exceed amount for this contract is $412,283. Item number 12 is for the same vendor, Satgar Construction. The change order not to exceed amount is $282,359, and this contract is for Clinton Houses. Items number 13 and 14 is also for the painting of apartments. Authorization is requested to approve a change order to this requirement contract awarded to Verinder Incorporated for maintenance painting of apartments, which did not require initial board authorization for an initial 2-year term with a 1-year renewal option to increase the not-to-exceed amount in the amount of $377,805 in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the initial 2-year term and the 1-year renewal option term, which commenced on February the 13th, 2018, and is continuing through February the 12th, 2031. This contract oversees Brook Ellen houses. Item number 14, again, is for maintenance painting of apartments. The vendor is Verinder Incorporated. The not-to-exceed amount is $264,758. This contract oversees Berry and Toad Hill houses. Items number 15 is also for the painting of apartments. The vendor for this contract is Simco Enterprises Corporation. The not-to-exceed amount is $467,708. This contract is for Mitchell Houses, Batanzas 2, 18, and Batanzas 3, 18. Are there any questions?
You do? Have a question?
Items number 16 is for the painting of apartments. This requirement contract was awarded to Beasler Painting Corporation for maintenance and painting of apartments. The not-to-exceed amount is $445,961. This contract covers Taft Houses, 131 St. Nicholas Avenue. And item number 17, again, is for the maintenance painting of apartments. The vendor is New Excess Floor Covering. The amount is for $166,450. This contract covers Murphy Houses, LLC 2, and 1010 East 178th Street. Item number 18 is for tub glazing. Authorization is requested to approve this change order to this requirement contract, which was awarded to Metro City Renovation Incorporated. The not-to-exceed amount is $283,809.65. This contract is for tub glazing for various developments in the borough of Brooklyn. Item number 19, authorization is requested to approve a change order to this requirement contract awarded to Speedo Corporation for repair and replacement of hopper doors and pans, which did not require initial board authorization for an initial 2-year term with a 1-year renewal option to increase the not-to-exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the initial 2-year term and the 1-year renewal option term, which commenced on December the 21st, 2018, and is continuing through December 20th, 2021. This contract is funded in the amount of $278,075, and it will cover various developments in the borough of Brooklyn.
278,755. Just want to correct that for the record.
Again, correction, $278,755.
And I'm sorry, this is for replacement of hopper doors and pans. So I'm trying to figure out what exactly is the pan?
The pan is attached to the hopper door, right? So you have the hopper door that pulls down.
It's a
Right.
part
and
of the,
Is it,
It's part of the trip, when you put it open.
when you pull the tray, where you slide the
Right.
slides down, there's
Yeah,
something.
okay, all
Trash
right,
chute.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, 20?
Thank you. Item number 20, authorization is requested to approve a change order to this requirement contract awarded to Mahi Painting Incorporated for plastering restoration, which did not require initial board authorization for an initial 2-year term with a 1-year renewal option to increase the not-to-exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the initial 2-year term and the 1-year renewal option term, which commenced on November the 13th, 2018, and is continuing through November the 12th, 2021. This work is for plastering at various Queens and Staten Island developments, as well as to assist management and planning. They will be the administering departments. The amount of this contract is $166,000, $505.70. Items number 21 through 26 is for the removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tile. Item number 21, the not-to-exceed amount is for $239,621. This contract will cover Douglas 1 and 2, Douglas Addition, and 830 Amsterdam Avenue. The administering departments will be operations, management, and planning.
The contract is Simpson Construction.
The contract is Simpson Construction. Item number 22, authorization is requested to approve a change order to this requirement contract awarded to Cushion Construction Incorporated for removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tiles in apartments which did not require initial board authorization for an initial 1-term, 1-year, 6-month renewal option to increase the not-to-exceed amount in the amount of $132,489 in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the initial 1-year term and the 6-month renewal option term, which commenced on January the 14th, 2019, and is continuing through July 13th, 2020. This contract will oversee Patterson Houses. Item number 23 is awarded to Metro City Renovation. This contract, again, is for the removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tile in apartments. The funding source is in the amount of $97,336. This contract will oversee Fulton Houses. Item number 24 is also for the removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tiles in apartments. This contract is awarded to Metro City Renovation. The dollar amount is $322,000, $243. This contract will oversee Grant Houses. Item number 25, authorization is requested to approve a change order to this requirement contract awarded to J.P. Handa Construction Incorporated for the removal and installation of vinyl floor tiles in apartments. This contract is awarded to Linden Houses. The dollar amount of this contract is $42,000, $651. Item number 26, this contract is for the removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tiles in apartments. The contract is awarded to USA2 Construction. The dollar amount is $117,000, $593. This contract covers Polo Grounds Towers, and it will be overseen by management planning. Items number 27 and 28 is for vinyl composition floor tiles. This contract, for item number 27, authorization is requested to ratify a change order to this requirement contract awarded to Metro City Renovation Incorporated for the removal and installation of vinyl floor tiles in apartment, initial board authorization, and as subsequently amended for an initial one-year term with 1 6-month renewal option to increase the not-to-exceed amount in order to fund the continued provision of services during the remainder of the initial one-year term and 6-month renewal option term, which commenced on December the 21st, 2016, and is continuing through June 20, 2020. The amount of this...
2018.
2000
Just wanna correct that. You
I'm
said
sorry.
16. 2018 through 2020.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem.
The administering department for this contract is Operations, Management, and Planning. This contract is for Johnson Houses, and the amount of the contract is $9,999.99. Item number 28 was also awarded to Metro City Renovation for the removal and installation of vinyl composition floor tiles in apartments. The amount of this contract is $146,000, $66, and this contract was awarded to Johnson Houses, and the administering department is Operations, Management, and Planning. I would just like to take this opportunity just to thank all of you for your ongoing and continued support, and I would like to say that it has been an honor for me to serve the residents and the staff of public housing over the past 33 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, items 29 and 35 through 37.
Good morning. I'm Jonathan Gavaya, Senior Vice President of Real Estate. With respect to item 29, we are seeking authorization to submit 3 types of applications to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. First, applications pursuant to Section 18 of the U.S. Housing Act of 1937. Second, applications pursuant to the Rental Assistance Demonstration Program as part of a portfolio award application. And third, a financing plan that would enable us to convert Section 9 public housing to Section 8 for the following developments: Audubon, Bethune Gardens, Harlem River 2, Marshall Plaza, and Williamsburg. So what do these 3 things mean? The 3 combined will allow us to move forward with the conversions of the developments I just listed, plus Linden and Boulevard, which are 2 unfunded developments. So we need to get all 3 of those approval applications in place, and then the subsequent approvals will allow us to move forward. Those sites that I just listed were subject to a recent RFP. We got responses back on Friday. We are now going through those responses, and we expect to make designations by the end of the year, and then close by the end of 2020. And then the renovations would be completed by 2022. So it is important that we get these applications in. The second component to what we're trying to do here is items 1 and 2 will also form the basis of a portfolio award application to HUD. HUD recently revised its HUD notice. I believe it was around Labor Day. And part of that new notice allows you to submit a full portfolio award application, which would allow essentially HUD to put a reservation on the entirety of the units that you wish to convert. As you all know, in 2018, the mayor and NYCHA committed to converting 62,000 units. So it is our intention, assuming approval today, that we would submit the application by the end of this week, and that would tee us up to be able to get through our commitments as effectively as possible. Any questions? Oh, and Board Member Adams, you had asked last week about some information related to evictions. We're compiling that information for you, and we'll send it as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yep.
One couple elements I'd like to be clear about. The portfolio portion of this is a placeholder for us. These are not, they will still have to come through individual RAD processing. So there's a national cap on the number of units, and we're trying to reserve our remaining units so we fit under that cap. And also, we're trying to do it in a year where the subsidy is higher and the capital is higher, because we've had this 2-year federal budget deal. So by doing it now, we lock in at 2019.
That's right.
So if there's future cuts, they would not impact these properties because we've locked in at these rates, and the federal government would have to honor those rates. And that really, in the RAD process, buys us both some security on the subsidy, but also would buy us more than if we had cuts to operating or capital cuts subsequent. Did I get that right?
That's right. That's correct.
Okay, great.
And to me, this was a very positive sort of opportunity for
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
A good thing. So overall, it's part of just getting to the 62.
Right, just getting to the 62 and showing that we're reserving our units, because one of the things we saw when we were in DC last week, of the 70 CLAFA members present, probably 40 of them are doing RAD. And there's a lot of competition, so we wanted to make sure we got all ours in.
That's correct. Okay, so I'm also presenting on items 35, 36, and 37. These are all actually very much related. Yes, sorry.
I had a question before you proceed.
Sure.
And based on what the chair said, and for the board member, it sounds like a very feasible opportunity to get this moving. At the presentation, there still hasn't nothing been said about the transgression for residents to be informed what's coming, their rights, to make this process easy as possible for them. None of that was in the presentation. Not saying, I won't be on board. I'm just saying that there has to be something to lessen this impact. People are afraid. People don't know. People need to know what's coming. A lot of people might not be eligible or might lose out altogether. So is there anything in place, any info sessions, any meetings, any, whatever?
So we are required by HUD regulations to provide 2 public meetings. We actually go way beyond that. And we can set up a briefing for all of you with our community engagement team. We have a series of, a whole curriculum. It gets into what is RAD, what is the conversion, what are tenant rights, what is the process, and we go through about 7 or 8 different meetings where we break it all down for them. And as it relates to the sites that I had mentioned that we are seeking to convert rather make a designation by the end of this year and then close on a deal by the end of next year, we have already begun public engagement. We have started that series of education sessions for folks. But we can do a briefing for you and really show you what each component looks like.
And this will ramp up a lot as we begin to move from reserving our slots at the federal level, and we actually begin to bring each property forward.
That's right.
So while there's engagement to some extent now, that engagement gets deeper. To get to your point, Commissioner, about the engagement. And I think when we're going to do a RAD info, and we can give you both sort of the RAD basics and then our outreach at one of the future board meetings, so you can see what that process looks like.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And thank you for
If
getting
I
back.
may, at Wise Towers, they did 5 meetings.
5 for RAD?
I'm answering your question.
Oh.
At Wise Towers, they did 5 meetings for RAD. Starting early part of last year, they did it at various locations on the site. They did it at the organization called Goddard Riverside. They also did it, the resident association president had it in his tenant room. So they've given us an array of information with regards to all of that, and answered every question that the resident had. But again, there are organizations out there with the misinformation, and they mostly scare the seniors. And then we have to go back and reaffirm them of all the possibilities and things that are happening with all those permits.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on item 29?
No.
Okay, so 35, 36, and 37 are all part of the same project, which is Holmes Towers. This was a project that was subject to a 2016 RFP. At the time, NYCHA was looking to do 50-50 projects, meaning 50% market and 50% affordable. We went through a whole process, and in 2018, we sought a number of board approvals to support that concept of the program. So what we're now trying to do is actually do a little bit of housekeeping. We have been reconsidering the program of this project and the scope of this project to be more in line with where we are in terms of NYCHA 2.0. In June of 2019, we actually went to HUD and we asked them to withdraw our application, so that has been done. But in the pure interest of trying to ensure that everything is consistent, we wanted to rescind the 3 board approvals that we got last year. So that's 18-5, 18-10, and 18-12. So that's respectively 35, 36, and 37. And then we will come back to you once we have a new program and plan for that project.
But we do still plan that project.
Absolutely.
It's under a different
Absolutely.
configuration.
Yes.
Right, right.
Okay.
Any questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great, Jonathan, thank you.
30 through 33.
Morning, my name is Rasul Azanijad, Vice President of Healthy Home. Item number 30, requesting temporary suspend certain authority approval related to ventilation contracts and other contracts related to mold detection and inspection. As you know, mold growth driven by building deficiencies such as lack of ventilation or the leak in plumbing. Mold condition pose a high risk of related respiratory issues. To immediately mold issue quickly and to meet the requirement of revised bias consent decree and Hud Agreement, NYCHA must pursue multiple contracts on short notices. Healthy Home Capital Project Division and Operation Department are seeking to authorize temporary suspension of authority approval required by the authorities by law and contract procedure resolution. Also, the provision of progress report in lieu of authority approval to the board for contract award and change order related to ventilation, mold detection, inspection, and remediation. This board resolution will enable the authority to expeditiously enter into commence work under ventilation contract and other contract related to mold detection, inspection, and remediation administered by authority on Capital Project Division, Operation Department, and Healthy Home, while still provide the board with essential information related to this contract. The temporary suspension shall be effectively immediate and remain within 730 days. Any questions?
Not a question, but just a comment. On all of the suspensions, I think we should get a quarterly report, and even if there's nothing that's happened,
Sure.
that we see that. So Deborah reported on the other one, but I think we should just have a quarterly report. If there's nothing
Yeah.
to report, we should
And-
say that.
No, I think that's a good point, because we're really trying to accelerate these contracts because we're treating the mold as an emergency condition. And this gives us maximum flexibility, but we want to do that with the board being aware of what we're doing.
Right.
So at some point, we're going to develop, as part of our regular report to you, as these compliance things actually take hold, because what you're really seeing is the product of several years' worth of work to both get the Mold Busters program up and running, but then to treat the fans and the vent systems. So we actually move this contract much faster than the normal process, and this will give the Healthy Homes a lot of flexibility in bringing in the vendors, and then we can provide the board with updates
Right,
as
and
we go
because the
through.
other two, we have our weatherization and heating. So again,
Right.
just a quarterly report on all three, and if there's
Sure.
nothing to report,
Sure.
there's nothing.
Well, I think there'll be contract activity pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, so.
But
'cause
either
our-
way, it's
yeah,
important that
yeah.
we know on that. In somewhat of a related thing on procurement, I feel like it would be very healthy, not Healthy Homes, but very healthy, for the board to hear a report on the information around no bid contracts that was given some press recently. And so.
Oh, the micro purchase.
Yeah, the micro
Yeah.
purchases. So I think it would just be good for us as a board all
Sure.
together to hear a report on the process that's used for those.
One thing we can do is give you the technical response that we provided to that.
Yes.
Because that would be, because first off, I think one of the things that was difficult about that article was this is an approved and recognized federal procurement practice.
Right.
What we're looking out for is sort of the pattern where I walk in and do it 5 times on the same day or
Right.
something like that. So, but under those rules, we really only have a responsibility to determine that we think the price is reasonable and that we distribute the work. And that's the only 2 federal requirements imposed on us. But I do think it would be good for the board to see how we responded and particularly for the 2 contracts that were cited, what we found out later on background that was not in the article.
And for the public record,
Yeah.
that the whole process
Sure.
was reviewed by the board.
Yeah, I think we could have procurement or legal come together and do a presentation next board meeting. That'd be swell. Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution number 31, authorization requested to enter IDIQ contract for lead-based paint and inspection. This lead-based paint inspection, as required by authority, the management and supervision and labor and equipment that are necessary to efficiently inspect apartment for lead-based paint. As you guys know, we have already 10 contracts, and this is the supplement, and the value of these contracts is about 10 million. AirTech is the contractor, and he's already working with us. Any question?
Rizal, their scope is, they're not doing, are they doing testing XRF or are they doing other work?
No, they doing other work, and they doing
And they're doing the
XR.
XRF as well? Okay,
Right.
Thank you.
Resolution,
One more.
yes, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't have a question, I just wanted to make a comment. I want to thank you on the follow-up of the dust wipe information and the XRF testing.
No problem.
I saw that the reports that they send to the residents that have anything wrong with their apartment is quite clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Resolution number 32, requesting to award an IDIQ to contract for the roof fan and ventilation system. Again, the Healthy Home has identified about $50 million in funding to perform portfolio-wide ventilation upgrade in order to compliance with the section subpart of 17B of the Hud Agreement and the requirement of revised biased consent decree. NYCHA solicited the 6 contracts and identified 1 viable bidder for the performance of following scope of work, which is cleaning and repainting of apartment exhaust register, ensuring proper seal between the register and the wall, opening replacement damper and clean vertical shaft where necessary, replacing drag belt exhaust fan with the direct drive fan, and installing sensor to make sure improve the operation of the exhaust fan. The value of this contract is $8.3 million, and we are pending the VNC for this contractor, and we will not award until we get clear VNC. Any question? No?
Okay.
Item number 33, authorization to enter a 4 IDIQ contract for pest management. The authorization is toward the 4 contractors, which are Best at Pest, Royal Extermination, Sure Shot, and U.S. Exterminator. Under this IDIQ, the selected firm will provide, as required by authority, the management, supervision, labor, and equipment that are necessary to perform IPM. The IPM vendor will ensure all pesticide applications are applied strictly by labor direction and in accordance with the applicable law. The value of these 4 IDIQ is about $18 million. The VNC on all these contractors are pending, and we will not award until we get clear VNC.
I would like to add one comment, which is that what you're seeing here is the contractual and actual compliance actions going into the units based on that presentation we had at the beginning of the meeting.
Right.
So, and, Dan was clear that work has been going on for a while, but we're really trying to line up the organization, the contracting and delivery of these services. And this is money and resources, both ours and contractors, going into trying to meet the compliance requirements that are given to us in the agreement. And this is the beginning of probably a long series of these kind of vendor contracts where we're bringing people in to help get the buildings to address those
And
compliance
this is to
areas.
enable us to complete it in 3 years, right? All the
Based on up to 3 years, yes.
IP dams.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Jason.
Good afternoon. I am Jason Goldberg, Associate General Counsel for Corporate Affairs, and I'm presenting item 34 on behalf of the General Counsel. Authorization is requested to amend and restate the authority's contract procedure resolution, commonly referred to as the CPR, to 1, modify the definition of the term change order therein to distinguish the meaning of change order from amendments to contracts that solely increase the contract's not to exceed or maximum fee amount with no change to the scope of the contract, and 2, to include a new definition for a funding increase to a contract so as to more accurately capture changes to contracts that solely increase the contract's not to exceed or maximum fee amount. This amended and restated CPR will contain some additional edits throughout to reflect these 2 definitional revisions. Accordingly, we seek the board's approval and authorization to amend and restate NYCHA's CPR to incorporate these 2 substantive revisions and related edits. And unless the board has any questions, I respectfully ask that the board approve this item.
And if board members recall, this grew out of conversations we had about the difference between sort of capital contract and requirements contract. And this change would reflect the difference that we're permitted to make because it is a requirements contract and technically is not a change order. And that we're really just saying, hey, you've done a good job, we like your materials or your service, and we're buying the same thing and bringing it forward for additional funding. So it's not quite, we're not changing the scope, we're not changing some of the other things you normally associate with a change order. So we wanted to add this so that we'll actually revise the form and get that in line with what the law department has advised.
Thank you,
Any
Jason.
questions? Other than, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Jason.
Yeah.
Chair, 37 items are presented for board approval. May I have a motion to approve the 37 items? Second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Being that all matters before the board today have been addressed, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved. Oh, I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
have one thing.
I'm sorry.
I just want to acknowledge that this is Customer Service Week here at NYCHA, and just from the point of view of the board, to thank all of the staff at NYCHA for what you do every day and the hard work and the dedication you show. So I just wanted to raise that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Salute.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
So, Chair, second? All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay.